Hello, and welcome to the Responsive Family Sleep Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hawley, holistic sleep coach, lactation consultant, peaceful parenting educator, and mom. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the conflicting sleep info, frustrated with sleep information that just plain felt wrong, or search desperately for a truly gentle and responsive sleep approach, then you are in the right place. In each episode, we'll be answering your most pressing baby and toddler sleep questions, busting those sleep myths, and helping you understand truly developmental, biologically normal baby and toddler sleep, plus encouraging you to trust your intuition along the way. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, we are talking about overnight postpartum doulas, which for some of you, that might seem like an interesting topic. And yet, I do actually talk about overnight support, not a lot, but a decent amount with some of my expecting parents in my newborn sleep class, some of my parents looking ahead towards their second or more babies and wanting more support. And so here we are. We're going to talk about how to know if a postpartum doula is lactation supportive, lactation knowledgeable, and if they are ready and able and interested in supporting sleep in a more responsive way. And who better to have for this conversation than a postpartum doula? Alex, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation and being willing to chat about this with me.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't we just start off? You can share a little about yourself and then we'll kind of jump in.
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Alex. I have been a postpartum doula for a little over 2 years now. Before that, I had some time as a nanny, and before that, I was a 12-year-old with business cards for babysitting. So I tell people all the time, I've been in the business for a minute. Um,
I love that.
yeah, I pretty much exclusively do overnight postpartum work at this point. So that's my jam and my specialty, and I generally work with families for about 6 to 8 weeks after birth. So that's kind of my sweet spot.
I love that. I love that. Now, I think before we dive into the specifics around like being lactation supportive and being, normal sleep supportive, let's just share a little bit more about like what is a overnight postpartum doula and also like what are they as compared to like a night nurse or a newborn care specialist? Because I don't think parents really know the difference necessarily. I'm sorry if you two parents out there listening, but I hear them a lot of times interchangeable. The training is different. So let's just clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, they're all similar enough that there's some like gray overlap areas, but they do have different roles and it's more of like a different focus, I think. I always have a little like red flag that goes off my brain if a provider is using the term night nurse, because unless you're a medical professional with a nursing degree, if you're saying night nurse, you're probably not trained. Um, that term has kind of like gone by the wayside, and that's mostly been replaced with newborn care specialist, which is a training separate from a postpartum doula, and they're very baby focused.
Mhm.
It's like right there in the name, newborn care. Whereas a postpartum doula, the postpartum person is the mom. Mom is postpartum. And so I really provide whole family care. It is supporting both of the parents, supporting the newborn, supporting any siblings in the household. Um, it does become generally very baby focused when I work overnight because one of our main priorities is maximizing rest as we can when I'm there. And so it
Mhm.
it is baby focused. I'm not like, oh, I'll never hold a baby. Um, but it's really whole family focused and making sure that that postpartum period runs smoothly and is as easy and healing as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I will fully admit to my own personal bias towards postpartum doulas. I've just found that at least amongst the professionals that I know, which might not be true for everybody. So I'm not out there generalizing to everybody in the whole profession. But I find that postpartum doulas are more likely to be on the same page with me and the types of parents that are attracted to my work than newborn care specialists. And that, I mean, that's just like a local thing to me because most of my postpartum doula knowledge is local. Um, maybe not. I don't know.
I think you're probably right. Um, and it's not that like one is better than the other.
Mhm.
It's just like what parents are looking for. They
Yeah.
need to like get the right professional. I like never I can't say never. I almost never like bottle feed babies. I've probably only done that a couple of times as a doula because that's not frequently part of my like role because I'm usually supporting breastfeeding,
Hmm.
whereas a newborn care specialist is probably doing a lot of bottle preparing and washing and doing all that kind of thing because that's just more in their scope.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's right. I'm glad you said like it's not about one being better than the other. It's about finding the right professional. And I find that's where a lot of the parents that tend to resonate with like my style of sleep support, right?
Hmm.
Um, where they get where they're struggling, right? Because even among postpartum doulas, there are a number who are sleep trainers. Not that they're
Sure.
all coming in to sleep train your newborn, but not all of the doula trainings do a good job of separating out not wanting to take a stand on sleep training, right?
Hmm.
Separating that from it's not taking a stand to actually teach people about normal sleep and normal sleep development if they're going into homes, and supporting new parents. And so I think that's something that as a profession as a whole, there's room to improve on. It's sort of as with many other professions that work with new parents in the first year, it's one of my things that I can get very feisty about, which we don't need to today. But
Yeah.
um,
I
I
mean,
think
the
that we need to be careful that like it's not taking a stance to say it's normal to feed your baby to sleep or it's normal that your baby's waking up and needs you, you
yeah.
know.
Doulas are unregulated. Uh, anybody can say, I'm a doula, and now you are. And s- the trainings generally from the ones that I've taken and the ones that I have heard about, like the basic training doesn't include a lot of that. You have to really seek out
Mhm.
additional knowledge if that's what you want to have. And it then where you're getting that knowledge from is, are you getting knowledge on how to sleep train babies or are
Mhm.
you getting knowledge on lactation and natural biological sleep patterns and things like that. So there's a lot of information out there, and not all of it is as helpful as other information.
Yeah, and if you don't know that what you might have passively absorbed like isn't necessarily accurate, then of course you don't always know that you need to seek out more information too, right?
Right.
But for parents who know that they want somebody to come in and not do a ton of sleep shaping, right? Who want to have somebody support lactation and bring their baby to them for feeds, who want somebody who's going to do a lot of soothing and who wants somebody that comes in, with that open kind of mind towards responsive sleep, towards more attachment-based, normal, biologically normal sleep. I think it's extra important that they get the right person because of the number of parents who I feel like have gotten that mismatch and then look back and realize that they're the person they hired to give them nighttime support was um not intentionally, but like they didn't know what to ask. So they were ending up with less responsive care than they had thought they were. And so I think that knowing how to ask questions and figure out are we on the same page
Right.
is huge and it's hard. You don't always know what to ask.
Yeah, you don't always know what to ask. And then I think it's also just an important factor that parents know what they want
Mhm.
because I think even if they don't know what they want, then a doula is going to default to what they know and what
Yes.
they do. And there's probably a large portion of doulas that maybe their default would be not so much that biological response, but
Yes.
if parents like set clear intentions and explain what they want, that we'd be happy
Hmm.
to do that.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's hard because if you don't know what you want as the parent and the doula is just kind of going, okay, well, I'm going to go in my general, then we can get these mismatches by accident. And that's why I say like
Yeah.
without any ill intention, just like these mismatches. So
Yeah, I highly doubt there's like
yeah.
evil doulas out there like I'm gonna go sleep train these babies. Like that's not what's
No, that's not
happening.
what's happening. Um, so I guess I think it'd be helpful to think through, and from your perspective, having been the doula that parents are interviewing, what
Mhm.
kinds of things should parents be thinking about or asking someone if they really want to make sure their overnight doula is good with that, supportive biologically normal sleep and that lactation support, right? Like not that you're an IBCLC, but like that knowledge to be really happy to support the nursing relationship.
Yeah. I think like a really good starting question, most people will probably volunteer this information, but you know, finding out what training they do have and
Mhm.
just because they have sleep training doesn't mean that they're a sleep trainer and it's doomed, but that is a good basis to know.
Mhm.
And if they have lactation training, I always tell parents, I don't have any letters behind my name about lactation, but I have like taken advanced lactation training
Mhm.
specifically for doulas, and I've supported lots of mamas and feel very confident. And I know when it's above my pay grade and to refer out to an IBCLC.
Such an
Um,
important skill, right? Knowing to when to refer.
yeah, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. I do what I do, and I have a great reference or a great referral network for other things. As I was thinking about when we talked, like, okay, what would I have a parent ask me that is like, oh, that's such a good question, especially if we're trying to not not like sneaky ask the questions, but get the real answer that's not just like the rote script answer. And I
Hmm.
think asking a postpartum doula, an overnight doula, like, what does a typical night look like? Like, what does a shift look like for you? And they should be able to kind of talk you through what that looks like and have kind of in your mind some green flags of,
Hmm.
I'm bringing baby to you, soothing, doing the things, and there's probably some red flags in there of, if it's, we're trying to get them to sleep as long as possible. If that's not what you're looking for, then that's for that parent a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. And almost kind of along the same lines, do parents ever ask you like when do you like how do you make the decision to bring a baby to the parent versus being able to soothe them yourself, you know?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like most parents don't ask very many
Yeah.
questions, which they should ask more. So I love that you're like doing this podcast episode, because so many of them are like a little overwhelmed,
Hmm.
which is totally natural, and you don't know what you don't know, and they're looking to me as a professional, which I appreciate, but also I'm looking to them as a parent, because I'm not gonna make the parenting decisions for them. One person asked me once, like, well, what would you do if the baby woke up just like an hour after we fed? I'm like, that's a great question. I gotta like remember that one
Yeah.
for a good question because my brain, I'm like immediately like, okay, maybe they're hungry, but maybe they're not. Both are perfectly normal
Hmm.
responses at an hour. So what do? I check for hunger cues. And if the soothing and just picking up and holding a baby and they just need a little bit of comfort, that's not a hunger cue, then that's what we do. And if they don't, then I go wake up mom because that's where we're at.
Yeah, I love that. I was just thinking, like, I never had a postpartum overnight doula, but I did have my mom here. And, you know, she has that lovely mom, grandma instinct of, you know, this is a fussy baby, but this is a fussy baby who can be in grandma's arms versus this is a fussy baby that really needs their mom.
Yeah.
And when my daughter was born and my son's 5 years older, he would like freak out every time that his sister would cry. And this would be like at dinner, it wouldn't necessarily be overnight. But
Hmm.
he'd be like, he needs mommy, she needs mommy. And she'd be like, no, like she is fine while your mom eats her dinner. Like,
Yeah.
and just that ability sometimes to know that like she wasn't cueing to feed, right? Like she was
Right.
not giving any hunger cues. And that sometimes it's okay to be actively soothed by someone else. And sometimes it's clearly time to go to the
Yeah.
parent for a feed or for whatever you as the parent's comfort level is for when you would get a baby brought to you.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest benefits of having overnight help is when you find the good match and you have that trust and that relationship that mom can go and turn off her brain, turn off her ears, and know that baby is okay and being soothed. And when mom is needed for what only she can do, that will happen also. But she
Yeah.
doesn't have to like sit and listen all night long to every squawk. Oh, is it time to feed or is it just a soothe? Is it, you know,
Mhm.
what's happening? She gets to kind of like turn that brain off and know that I'll bring baby in or I'll go get her, or, whatever the arrangement is, and baby will be well cared for.
Yeah, because you get to use that cognitive part of your brain to decide like what's going on here and then be the arms, like the
Yeah,
extra pair of arms to do the soothing because all that soothing doesn't need to be with mom all the time
yeah,
overnight so you can get some sleep. And it's normal for a newborn to not want to be out of arms. So if they're really struggling with that and not sleeping, you get to be that extra person, right?
yeah,
And throughout human history, we've always had people doing this. It used to be sisters and aunties and cousins.
yeah.
And
And now you
now,
have to hire your village.
yeah. But also, now you come with a lot of, you know, knowledge and we can kind of set those expectations because it is a different dynamic than family for goods and for bads, right? Like it's lovely to have extended family supporting you, but also it's lovely now that we can really interview people and get a good match and ask these questions and have these
Yeah.
conversations.
Something that you said just reminded me of a conversation I have with almost every family, usually when it's going to be my first night off or, when I have the night off. And sometimes I'll come back and they're like, what happened? Like the baby ate so much more last night or like so much sooner. And I feel like if you don't understand what's happening there, that could seem like we're going against this biological sleep. Like I'm over there like sleep stretching. I'm like, well, the thing is, like I just have some other tools at my disposal. Um, when it's not that they're hungry, but
Hmm.
when mom picks up baby, like don't be afraid to nurse. Like you're not going to overfeed your nursling baby. And so I'm like, don't worry about feeding more when I'm not here. You've got those tools at your disposal. Um, and it's just like when I'm there, if that's not what they need at the moment, and I can use other soothing methods, pretty much usually just holding them does the
Hmm.
trick. I spend a lot of, nights in quiet, dark nurseries, just sitting in a rocking chair.
And I mean, lucky baby, right? For all that extra time
Yeah,
in arms because that's so healthy for them.
yeah,
Um, I think that's because nursing isn't just about food. And so
right.
if you're the nursing parent and your baby's fussing, you're gonna nurse them.
Yeah,
And only some of those are like hunger needs. They're all like helping boost your milk supply and all this great stuff, but like only some of those are hunger needs. And other ones are connection regulation needs that if you're the postpartum doula, you're going to get from rocking and holding and, comforting if what they really need is the comfort.
Yeah.
And if what they really need is the food, then that's when you're going to take baby to nurse.
Yeah. But they need a lot more, they need comfort more often than they need just food.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so
Yeah.
if it's just parents, no doula, then that comfort might be nursing.
I mean, I wonder too also if it helps that like this is your job, right? So like you're showing up really in a different headspace than a parent overnight who's just like, "Oh my God, I want to sleep."
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's
I mean,
nurse, shove boob in face, like
exactly. I mean,
whatever.
pretty much. Like when they're like, "Oh, should I have waited?" And I'm like, "No." Like if baby's awake and we'll nurse, like do it and get everyone back to sleep. Like go for it. But yeah, I'm coming in rested and refreshed and happy to sit up for hours and and do that comfort and soothing and just holding. Whereas it's totally normal and understandable that at 3 in the morning, parents are not really super interested in just sitting awake in the middle of the night while their baby learns what day and night are.
Yeah. So parents talking to doulas, right? They can ask about a typical night. They can ask like what you would do if baby woke soon after a feed. They can ask about your lactation experience or other experience. I mean, I guess they could also ask like how often you are supporting families who want sort of a more attachment-based sleep
Yeah,
style and just like I don't expect that that's most postpartum doulas norm, but it also I feel like that response to like, oh, like that's not the majority of my clients, but I love to support those families would feel really differently than, a doula that's like totally thrown by that answer or by that
right.
question.
Just that question. Yeah.
Um,
I also think, I don't know that I have like a specific question in mind, but I- something to kind of find out like how much a doula's bias is going to kind of come into your home. Because most doulas are moms themselves.
mhm.
And even if they're not, like we've just taken care of a lot of babies and we're human beings with opinions. Um,
Yeah.
and bias isn't like a dirty word. It
No,
just,
we all have
we
it.
all have it.
Absolutely.
And so something that I try and tell parents is I obviously have opinions on the way that like I would choose to do things. I don't have any children of my own, but I was a foster mom for a few years and I had 5 newborns. So I've done um the mom gig and I have ways of doing it, but I am not going to parent your child. And I'm not there to replace you. I'm there to support you in your parenting. And so things like parents will ask me, well, should we give the baby a binky? I'm like, I'm not gonna decide that. So like, here's the pros, here's the cons. What do you want to do and what do you want me to do? And then we'll
Mhm.
go from there.
I like that. So showing that supportive, informed decision making and that it's not really it's the doula's decision to make,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to like, I don't know where I was going with that, but right, not coming in and being like, pacifiers are the worst, they're terrible. You would never want to give your kid one, which I mean, I don't know any doulas that come in quite that heavy, but um,
Usually not.
you know, just to
But
over exaggerate,
it
for
is
example.
easier if someone tells me or asks me, well, should we give the baby a binky? It's easier for me to say either like, yeah, it's great, or no, I don't think we should. That is easier than explaining, here's why you might want to, here's why you might not want to, and like
Hmm.
talking through it with them. But that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. That willingness to engage and the pros and cons, because so many things with babies, I mean, with parenting, but with babies, and newborn care, when you're especially for the first time, it is a lot of pros and cons. Like nothing is, I mean, I don't know. Most things don't have universal pros and no cons.
Right.
Um,
Otherwise, we would all just know that that was the right thing and there would be no disagreement.
yeah, yeah. Any other things that parents should be thinking about or looking for as far as like red flags or green flags or things that might help them know, like, yes, this person is coming in with the right intentions and sort of practice values. And I think we
Um,
got it all.
I think we talked about this. Like, I think honestly, just being straight up and asking, like, do you do any sleep training? Like, are you a sleep trainer? Like, sussing that out. Um, I, as I said at the beginning, I work with families for about 6 to 8 weeks, so I'm not doing any sort of sleep training. They're way too little.
Mhm.
I have what I call sleep conditioning, which is I don't know. They're all this. Is it all the same thing? Is it a gray area? But for me, what that looks like is it's generally a really good cue for families when I get there at night that now it's nighttime. It's really easy in the newborn bubble to just get sucked into like feed, sleep, diaper, feed, diaper, sleep. And
Yeah.
night turns to day and day turns to night, and the baby doesn't know what is what. And, everyone's still in their pajamas all day, and that's fine. But when I get there, now it's nighttime, we're quiet, the lights are going down, sound machine's on. If we're swaddling, we're swaddling. And we're really treating it like nighttime where rest is the priority.
Mhm.
Even if that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is sleeping a ton, because we're supporting biologically normal newborn sleep, which means frequent wakings. And they're awake a lot and they feed a lot, but it looks like nighttime. It feels different than when I leave in the morning. We turn on the lights, we talk, we interact with baby, and it's daytime now.
See, I would call that supporting a healthy circadian rhythm.
Yes, maybe that's what I should start calling it.
I mean, that's really what you're doing, right? Like one of the things that I teach when I teach my newborn sleep class from birth is like we need to help baby, right? With our light environment because we live in modern times where we can totally scramble people's circadian rhythm and we do that to ourselves all the time. And so if we can have a regular morning start to our day, meaning that like activity is increasing, light is increasing, right? Lots of light throughout the day. And then a regular time we dim the lights in the evening to just to do warm, soft lighting, right? And then a regular time it is dark and it is nighttime. Then we're going to help baby develop their circadian rhythm faster. And we're going to support a healthier circadian rhythm overall, including for the adults. And so, yeah, I would just call it supporting a healthy circadian rhythm.
Sounds better. Well, I'm gonna adopt that.
I mean, it's more sleep sciencey, and it's true. You're right though. Like it is so easy in the newborn early weeks, especially, just to have it be like all everything goes into everything else, and it's just complete blur. And I remember when we were talking before um, before today, talking about this, and I was like, oh, I love how that sort of forces you into those anchors of morning and nighttime. And I'm always talking about that. And it's hard to hold yourself accountable, to like drag yourself out of bed at a regular time, even though it's better for you and it's better for baby.
Yeah. My current family, I don't leave until 9 a.m.
Hmm.
Um, so we're just like kind of sometimes I'm usually out a little bit earlier. And so usually everyone's still asleep when I leave, but I will like open the windows in the nursery, turn down the
Hmm.
sound machine, and she usually wakes up shortly after I leave. to eat again, but it's like the house is set up to be morning
Yeah.
once they wake up from that last stretch of sleep.
Yeah, and it's that light cueing, right? Like if we keep the house really, really dark, we're cueing the body it's still nighttime. Versus if we're
Yeah.
like, okay, we're ready to transition to daytime, even if everyone's not up, but we have light coming into the home,
Yeah.
then we're helping the body realize that it's daytime.
Yeah.
So I
And
love
there's so
that.
many
I
of
love
those
that.
cues. One of my favorite families, they had a 3-year-old as well as the newborn. And my first task of every shift was going up to the kids' bathroom and we brushed our teeth together. Because for her, like me showing up was her bedtime cue.
Oh,
That it was like, oh, it's time to get ready for bed now. And so we'd go brush our teeth together.
I
And
love that.
and then get on with the rest of the baby care. But it's about the whole family and not just a newborn and not even just a mom, but everybody.
I am so glad you shared that because I get a like when I'm talking with my clients about overnight doulas, it's typically their first was is a really intense sleeper, right?
Mhm.
Really highly sensitive, really intense kiddo, really persistent kiddo. And so they had a really rough journey
Yeah.
and they're looking ahead to a second kiddo and they're like, okay, we are going to need some more help. Like we want to build more of a support system. And so versus like when it's a first time family, they're usually more likely to be in my newborn sleep class that I'm having these types of conversations.
Mhm.
Um, but I love that like way of bringing in the older kiddo and making them part of the process of you being there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
Uh,
just like I almost
Yeah.
wonder if like if our older kids awake, how would you interact with them is a reasonable
Yeah.
question.
I think it's really great. And I try to do my prenatal visits. I usually just have like one with a postpartum family if I'm only working with them postpartum, where we kind of do a house tour and kind of talk about the finer things and meet in person before we're starting and they're, leaving me alone with their baby.
Hmm.
Um, but I try and have older siblings be there. So we don't do it like while they're at school if they're that old. So that we can kind of interact and get to know them. And I think it really helps toddlers transition
Hmm.
to have a postpartum doula. That kind of, I mean, we come with the baby. For that first 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how often you have a person there, like they're kind of attached, they're tied to when the baby arrived. So did the doula.
Hmm.
And it also gives parents some time and space to focus on that older child, um, while they like know that baby is in good hands. And it really just, I think it makes a big difference.
Okay. I have two more questions that just popped into my head. So, um, when you're coming in for a first night with a family, do you do anything in particular kind of with that handoff of the baby the first time? Because
Um,
the baby doesn't know you at that point, because they're new and you're new and
yeah,
we're
they're
going
new.
right into nighttime.
It's true. Um, yeah, so I tend to try and join my families with their first night home from the hospital. So yes, everybody is brand new. This is a new family unit. Um, I don't have any real specific like trying to think. Definitely we sit and talk a little bit about, how they've been in the hospital probably if that's where they gave birth for at least a
Mhm.
day or two. So how that's been going, how latching has been going so far,
Mm,
um,
feeding
kind of
check-in.
how often they've been feeding the baby, just sort of get an update on baby's life so far, even if
Hmm.
that's only, 1 or 2 or 3 days. A lot's happened.
Hmm.
Um, I'm frequently there on night 2, which is great because
That's a rough night.
second nighting is a rough night.
Hmm.
Um, But sometimes I'm night three, so then they just went through that by themselves the night before.
And they're probably like, "We love you. Come
Thank
here."
you.
Yes, come. Thank you.
Yes, but I mean, I'm very clear from the beginning that this will never be a, oh, hey, I'm here. Good night. See you in the morning situation. Um, yeah, sometimes it is that way with dad. But it's so that he can support her all day long.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, just kind of touching base and making sure that everyone's feeling comfortable and, just do a lot of baby holding. I love a good
Yeah,
baby snuggle. I was the 12-year-old with babysitting business cards.
I love that. So I'm going to ask you something a little out of your comfort zone because I know you do a lot of work in the first 2 months.
Okay.
So it's okay if you're just like, I don't really know. But I know some postpartum doulas do nighttime support longer, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, and I'm just curious, sort of your thoughts on stepping in with a family with a baby that isn't that fresh newborn. So I feel like new newborns are a little bit more accepting of new people than,
Definitely.
maybe a
That's why
three
I'm
month
like, I
old.
don't really have a problem with it generally because they just, they're a tiny, sleepy
Yeah.
baby.
Warm, snuggly person and
Yeah. They're like,
they're
oh, you're good.
happy. Um, I don't know. Do you know from maybe not as much from yourself because you are focused more on the first couple months, but um, sort of the dynamics of bringing a doula in, like you weren't anticipating needing help or needing help immediately, but then you're like, OMG, I am in over my head. Anything in particular to be aware of bringing a doula in a little bit later?
Um, I would say just spending more time making sure that baby is comfortable. I
Hmm.
would I don't have a lot of experience personally with this, but I can venture to guess that just like popping your, 5-month-old wakes up in the middle of the night to a stranger, that's really not going to help anybody uh,
Yes.
get more sleep or have a better night. And so I think even just some of the things that we use as like getting them used to a nursery, which so it's if that's just like mom and doula and baby hanging out in the spending some time in the
Hmm.
nursery. Um, and if, baby won't go to the doula right away, but she's there with mom and baby, and just sort of getting everybody more comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, I have done a little I've like been a backup and filled in for some older babies and then they don't know me because I'm the backup.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's a little rough. And so I think also just expecting that there is going to be a transition and a little bit of a rough period and you bring this new person in and that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't going to work out and it can't work out, but you might just have to kind of get through a little bit of that rough period.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because either we're laying the groundwork with more time getting them used to you, or there's just going to be some extra bumpiness because newborns are way more receptive to
Yeah.
snuggles from anybody, who's confident and knows what they're doing and is
Yeah.
calm. And obviously, babies pick up on that. They know when someone scoops them up who knows babies versus someone who's like, "Oh,
Am I gonna break this baby?
oh
How
my
do I?
gosh."
Yeah.
Yeah, like they know the difference. They know they're safe when they're with a confident baby person.
Yeah.
Versus your 4 month old that's like, who are you?
Yeah, you are definitely not my mother.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
I feel like we touched on a lot of great points, but anything else as we're wrapping up that you feel like parents should be thinking about if they're gonna hire a doula?
Um, yeah, we've talked a lot about I kind of always just leave parents, so I'll leave the parents listening to this with you are going to spend a lot of time with your doula. and your baby's going to spend a lot of time with your doula. And so there's a lot of qualified people out there, and I think just finding somebody that you feel good about and that you trust and have that confidence in that it's a good match can really like make a world of difference and allow you to have that rest and that reassurance. And so you just doing what you can to find a good match for you and your family.
I love that. I mean, if you think about it, like that was so important picking a doula for a birth, right? You have to like them. You're letting them into a really big
Yeah.
personal space. You have to feel
Like
like
it's a very
comfortable.
vulnerable space. It's gonna be the middle of the night in your house
Hmm.
and you're breastfeeding and all the things and you need to be comfortable with the person, uh, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love this. I know as a doula, like your work is really local to you, but do you have any links or anything you want to sh kind of shout out where folks can find you?
Yeah, I'm local in Los Angeles. I am doula.alex.king on Instagram. Um, and I'm not very active on the social media. I'm pretty much referral based, word of mouth, because all of my families just tell
Love
all their
you.
friends. I'm like, how do I say this humbly?
Because they
They
love you.
they all love me and they tell everyone. And then I get to go on and love some more babies and some more families.
I love that. I love that. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being willing to jump into this conversation with me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode left you feeling more informed, confident, and encouraged on your sleep journey. And just a reminder before you go that nothing in this episode is individualized to your specific sleep situation, nor is it to be taken as medical advice. Take what resonates, ignore what doesn't, and check with your healthcare provider about any medical concerns. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast so that you'll never miss an episode. And take a moment to rate, review, or share an episode you love on social media. All of that helps parents just like you find me, this podcast, and this gentle and responsive sleep information. I'll see you next time.